On a grey afternoon last February, the King of England listened for 40 minutes and did nothing. The call came from his only sister. It was about his wife. And by the time he set the receiver down, the most important decision of Camilla's life had already been made for her. He made it by saying nothing at all. There was one sentence that afternoon that could have stopped everything that followed. One call, one order. He never made it. And honestly, once you understand why, you will never look at this marriage the same way again. Here's the thing almost nobody will say out loud. The king did not betray his wife. He stopped defending her. And in this family, that quiet difference is everything. For nearly 30 years, you were handed a tidy version of this story. Diana was the wife, Camilla was the other woman, Charles was the man trapped in the middle. That version fits on a magazine cover. It is also wrong. Charles was never trapped. He chose. He chose out loud in front of the whole country. In 1994, Charles sat for a television interview and confessed that he had been unfaithful. He said it plainly. Millions of people watched him say it. He was not cornered into the admission. He volunteered it. And by then, the woman at the center of that confession was a secret to no one. Then came the autumn of 1995. Diana sat in a quiet room, looked into the camera, and described her marriage in one unforgettable line. If you watched that interview when it first aired, you remember exactly where you were when she said there were 3 of them in that marriage. You remember the stillness in her face. You remember how the whole country went quiet. She was 36 when she died in a Paris tunnel in August 1997. Her marriage had been over for years, but the third person in it did not fade away. She stayed close to Charles. She married him in 2005. He confessed on television. He married her in 2005. He made her his queen. And honestly, for 30 years, every move Charles made was a move to protect her. He shielded her from the press. He waited out the public anger. He rebuilt her image one careful year at a time. Whatever else you say about this man, he defended that woman with a patience most people could never manage. But now look, we cannot read the private mind of a king, and nobody outside that family truly can. But what is on the public record is not in doubt. He chose her openly for 3 decades, which is exactly why what he's doing now is so hard to explain, unless you understand what he finally saw. Now here is where this stops being an old love story and starts becoming something colder. To understand the king's silence, you have to start with his son. William was 15 years old when he walked behind his mother's coffin in September 1997. The whole world watched a boy with his hands held flat at his sides and his face giving away nothing. He has never written about that walk. He has never sat for a film about it. He simply carried it. People close to him say the grief never turned loud. It turned patient. And patient grief in a man who now controls one of the oldest estates in Britain is a different kind of force. Honestly, that is the piece most people miss. Then there is Anne. Long before Camilla married Charles, before she even married Andrew Parker Bowles, Anne was the woman Andrew was seeing. That was the early 1970s. The press wrote about it at the time. It is in the public record, not in gossip. And the people who know Anne say she filed that away the way she files everything. Not as heartbreak, as information. Information about exactly how comfortable Camilla had always been, taking what belonged to other women. Now here is what the tidy version leaves out. Charles is not blind to any of this. He is the king. Very little moves inside that family without reaching his desk. He knows what his son is doing with the money. He knows what his sister is doing with the records. He has known for a long time, and that is the quiet horror at the centre of this whole thing. A king can protect almost anyone in his kingdom, except the wife he has decided to stop choosing. He has not raised his voice. He has not issued an order. He has simply taken his hand off the shield. He stopped defending her, and everyone in that building can feel it. Anne kept the memory. William kept the money. Charles kept the silence. Now, obviously, we cannot sit inside private conversations between a brother and a sister, and the palace will never confirm a word of this. But the pattern outside those rooms is visible to anyone watching, and the pattern does not lie the way people do. And honestly, this is where it gets genuinely uncomfortable for everyone watching from inside the palace, because everything you can actually see lines up in the same direction. In early 2025, Charles signed paperwork extending the power to grant royal warrants to William and his wife. Royal warrants are the Crown's formal stamp of approval. Handing that power to the next generation while still on the throne is not a small gesture. It is a signal about where the weight of the crown is being moved. Then the patronages began to shift. When the late Queen died in September 2022, she held hundreds of them. Several that had been lining up for Camilla quietly went elsewhere. No announcement, no statement, just a list that no longer had her name where her name should have been. The Duchy of Cornwall passed to William when his grandmother died. It has run as a working estate since the 1300s and brings in around £30 million a year. One of the first things to change was Camilla's own sister. Annabel Elliot had worked across duchy properties for nearly 20 years under Charles. Then her name simply stopped appearing. No row, no goodbye, just gone. No statement, no defence, no call from the king. Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son, reportedly found certain invitations drying up. According to one royal commentator, his place at certain summer events faded after 2024. The whole circle Camilla had built around herself for 20 years started looking thinner at every gathering. Then came the Sarah Ferguson problem. Ferguson's name surfaced in the Epstein files released by the United States Department of Justice. There's no evidence of any criminal wrongdoing on her part, but the connection is documented, and in this climate, it is radioactive. Sources say William's message to Camilla was blunt. Step away from Ferguson publicly and for good, or carry the cost yourself. Camilla reportedly refused. Ferguson was her friend long before any of this, and here is the part that matters. In the old days, this is exactly the kind of fight Charles would have stepped into on her behalf. He did not. He let her stand in it alone. And just before Christmas 2024, a property listing appeared. Ray Mill House in Wiltshire. The country home Camilla had owned since before she ever married Charles. The one place that was entirely hers. She once called its garden the best therapy in the world. It sold within 48 hours of going on the market. Not slowly, fast. The way you sell something when you have decided you no longer get to keep it. And honestly, there is one painful echo here, and I will keep it short because he deserves that. Some of you have said for years that the weakness in Charles is the same weakness you once saw in Harry, that both of them, at the worst moments, needed someone else to tell them what to do. There is something to that. But this time Charles is not waiting to be told. For once, his stillness is the decision. Harry is still Diana's boy, still caught between two worlds, and that is a different story for a different day. Which brings us back to that grey afternoon last February. The call from Anne lasted 40 minutes. We do not know every word, and we never will. But here is what sources describe. It ended with nothing resolved, and just after 4 in the afternoon, the king set the receiver down on the desk, turned toward the window, and said nothing to the room. One sentence from him could have slowed all of it. He did not offer it. He looked at the grey light and he let it go. There is a story going round the household about Anne from earlier this year. A senior figure reportedly asked her whether all of this was too harsh on Camilla. Anne is said to have answered in 5 words, "Diana deserves the truth now." Whether those were the exact words or not, the meaning is unmistakable. When Anne stops protecting someone, everyone in the room reads it instantly. And look, that line may be nothing more than staff shorthand, and the exact wording may never be confirmed, but the direction behind it is not in any doubt. Camilla can feel all of it and point to none of it. She has reportedly demanded explanations. She has asked why the invitations stopped, why the patronages moved, why the doors are heavier than they used to be. The answers come back procedural, polite, and final. You cannot file a complaint about a feeling. You cannot fight a pattern nobody will admit exists. She froze, she demanded, she got nothing. And here is the moment everyone keeps waiting for. The moment the king finally steps in for his wife, the husband who confessed on television to be with her, the man who married her against the will of half the country. Surely when it came to it, he would protect her. Honestly, that is the ending this story is supposed to have. It is not the ending it has, because Charles understands exactly what his son is doing. He understands exactly what his sister is doing, and he has decided to let both of them finish. He's 76. He was diagnosed with cancer in February 2024. He has held his public life together with real discipline through 2 hard years. He simply has no fight left to spend on a war about Diana. And some of you have wondered for a very long time whether he ever truly aggrieved her at all. That question is older than this story, and it is not mine to settle. But his silence right now is louder than any answer he could give. He did not betray her. After 30 years of shielding her from everything, he simply stopped defending her. Silence from a king is not absence. It is a verdict. And that verdict has Camilla's name on it. Now, obviously, none of this has been confirmed by the palace, and it never will be. Royal gossip has a way of hardening into accepted truth over time, and any single detail here could shift as more comes out. But the visible pattern across these 3 years is exactly what you would expect to see if everything the sources are saying is true. And the record speaks plainly enough on its own. Diana never lived to see this. She got a tunnel in Paris and 2 boys without a mother and a family that barely lowered its flags. But something is happening now that she did not live to see. Her son holds the money. Her sister-in-law holds the history. And the one man who could have stood between them and his wife has quietly stepped aside. Camilla took the marriage 30 years ago. She never took the thing that mattered. Honestly, this is not revenge. It is something quieter and far more permanent. It is the king choosing, for the first time in 3 decades, not to choose her. So let me ask you something, and I genuinely want to read your answers. Where were you in 1994 when you watched him confess on television? What did you think of him in that moment, and what do you think of his silence now? Tell me in the comments. I will be reading every single one.